Namaste.
Namaste.
Xin chào. Welcome to Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, Hanoi, Vietnam.
Xin chào mừng các bạn đã đến với phiên tọa đàm của Trung tâm Văn hóa Swami Vivekananda Hà Nội tại Việt Nam.
ICCR in Vietnam presents yoga webinar.
Và Hội đồng quan hệ văn hóa Ấn Độ xin được chào mừng các bạn đến với buổi tọa đàm quốc tế về yoga.
ICCR established SVCC to spread Indian culture in Vietnam, working under guidance of Embassy of India, Hanoi, Vietnam.
Hội đồng quan hệ văn hóa Ấn Độ tại Ấn Độ đã thành lập nên Trung tâm Văn hóa Swami Vivekananda Hà Nội tại Việt Nam dưới sự hướng dẫn của Đại sứ quán Ấn Độ tại Việt Nam.
Myself, Dr. Namrata Raj, welcomes you all on the second day of 5-day yoga webinar on the topic Yoga for Wellness and Harmony in Modern Life.
Và ngày hôm nay, người điều phối của chúng ta vẫn là tiến sĩ Namrata Raj sẽ cùng chào đón các bạn đến với phiên họp cũng như là buổi tọa đàm thứ 2 của chúng ta trong chuỗi 5 ngày, 5 buổi tọa đàm với chủ đề Yoga cho sức khỏe và sự hài hòa trong đời sống hiện đại.
The aim of the webinar is to bring different aspects of yoga to the foreigners in general and Vietnamese in particular through lectures, techniques, and presentation.
Và mục đích của những phiên tọa đàm của chúng ta đó là mang đến những cái điểm nhìn về khía cạnh khác nhau, không chỉ cho những người nước ngoài mà cả cho những người Việt Nam thông qua những bài giảng cũng như là những cái kỹ thuật khác nhau liên quan đến yoga.
The speakers who are specialized in their area are presenting their lectures to the audience.
Và chúng ta sẽ có những diễn giả khác nhau, am hiểu về những lĩnh vực và kiến thức khác nhau để trình bày kiến thức đến với khán giả của chúng ta.
It is my proud privilege to welcome and introduce Dr. Girish Jha to the audience.
Và ngày hôm nay tôi rất vui mừng được chào đón diễn giả chính trong buổi ngày hôm nay là tiến sĩ Girish Jha đến với các bạn khán thính giả.
Dr. Girish Jha has a 40 years of teaching experience, training, research, mentoring people, diplomats, technocrats, engineers, doctors, and students.
Và tiến sĩ Girish Jha đã có hơn 40 năm kinh nghiệm trong các mảng đào tạo, nghiên cứu, dạy học và điều phối những người thuộc các lĩnh vực khác nhau từ ngoại giao cho đến thiết kế, cho đến bác sĩ cũng như là sinh viên.
Known in India as a yoga teacher, spiritual mentor, guide, and practicing yogi.
Và ông được biết đến ở tại Ấn Độ như là một giáo viên dạy yoga, một bậc thầy về tinh thần, là người thực hành cũng như hướng dẫn về yoga.
He deeply studied both ancient wisdom and modern science, believing that they are the guide to the action for modern people to spiritual perfection and social well-being.
Và ông cũng là người nghiên cứu chuyên sâu về các mảng lĩnh vực tri thức, về tri thức cổ xưa cũng như là về môn khoa học hiện đại, và tin rằng những tri thức này thì sẽ giúp điều phối cái hành động của con người để hướng tới được cái sự hoàn thiện hơn nữa về nhân cách tinh thần của mình cũng như là sức khỏe trong đời sống xã hội.
Mr. Jha for many years was a leading teacher and program officer at Morarji Desai National Institute of Yoga, India.
Và ông Jha đã có nhiều năm kinh nghiệm trong việc dẫn dắt các giáo viên cũng như là các cán bộ về kiến tạo chương trình ở tại Viện Nghiên cứu Quốc gia Morarji Desai về yoga.
He immigrated to USA and now citizen, spreading the message and teachings of his master, Swami Lakshman Das Abdulji.
Và hiện tại thì ông đang định cư ở tại Mỹ để mà truyền đạt những cái tri thức cũng như là những cái thông điệp của mình về yoga theo như người thầy của ông là Swami Kawash De Avahoji.
He worked for United Nations Drug Prevention Program, De-addiction and HIV Rehabilitation Program.
Ngoài ra thì ông cũng làm việc phối hợp với cả tổ chức Liên Hợp Quốc về các cái chương trình như là phòng ngừa tác dụng của thuốc cũng như là tái hòa nhập cho những bệnh nhân mà mắc HIV.
He designed program for staff of Greystone Park Psychiatric Hospital, MG, on applied mindfulness.
Ngoài ra thì ông cũng thiết kế chương trình cho các bệnh viện về tâm lý liên quan đến các phương thức áp dụng chánh niệm.
He's teaching in India and USA for more than 40 years. It's my proud privilege to welcome him and share it with the audience.
Và với kinh nghiệm hơn 40 năm như vậy ở cả tại Ấn Độ cũng như là Mỹ, thì tôi xin được chào đón tiến sĩ Girish Jha có mặt ở đây ngày hôm nay. Xin mời tiến sĩ.
Welcome, sir. Now it's over to you.
Thank you, Neo, and thank you, Namrata, for introducing me to the audience. So let us come directly to understand the Eightfold Path of Mindfulness. It is the path to the self-discovery. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwarah, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, Sangham Sharanam Gacchami, Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami. So we will learn together about Eightfold Path of Mindfulness. But at the outset, I should say you have a link on this page, which is the Spreaker app. And I had given practices to thousands of people on mindfulness. And all those raw files are here on the Spreaker. Anyone can download it and anyone can practice. He is my master, Swami Lakshmandas Avdhutji, with whom I spent more than 26 years, and he introduced me first time in the Himalayas about Eightfold Path of Mindfulness. So today, we are going to talk briefly about what exactly is the meaning of Buddha, how long it took Buddha for enlightenment, what is mindfulness, from samyak smriti to mindfulness. Why I use this word? Buddha uses meditation or mindfulness. He uses the term samyak smriti. Like Ashtanga Yoga, he has also the Eightfold Path of Mindfulness. And the seventh path is known as the samyak smriti. So how this Samyak Smriti world converted into mindfulness in the West, and now also in India and everywhere in the world. What happened? So we will understand that part. Then we will understand the entire journey of Eastern wisdom versus modern science. So what exactly is the difference? Both are looking for the truth. So how they are different? So that makes the clear what exactly the mindfulness journey would be. Then we should also understand it is a hidden steps. Sometimes many masters, they think that you are a seeker, you are already ready. So they do not tell you the primary 4 steps to validate the teachings of mindfulness. So we will have a brief understanding of that. Then we understand what are the 4 noble truths, how to apply that in daily life. After the 4 noble truths comes the Eightfold Noble Path. And I have specifically written purification of mind, that is the first teaching of the Buddha, in the most famous book, Dhammapad, and how a person succeeds in mindfulness living in the modern world. Buddha was walking into the forest, no, into a village. And villagers saw him, and one villager asked, "Are you a prince?" Buddha smiled and said, "No, I'm not a prince." Another villager asked, "Are you an angel?" "No, I am not an angel." He smiled again. "Are you coming from another planet?" Third villager asked. "No." He smiled. Then all the villagers asked, "Then what are you? Who are you?" Buddha smiled and said, "I am awakened. I am awakened." That is how his name became Buddha. That was the humbleness of the Buddha. You should be aware that Kapila was a great master who lived more than 3,000 years ago, before Buddha was born. And Buddha studied. Kapila wrote Sankhya Yoga. Buddha said to his students that there was a Kapila, a great meditator, who guided the path of meditation, what we say, mindfulness. What Kapila said in a Sankhya Yoga, Dhyanam nirvishayam manaha. Devoid of all the contents of the mind is meditation. So can I say that the Buddha learned the philosophy and practices from Kapila? Answer is yes. Buddha is born in India. It's a part of a tradition. Uddalaka Ramaputra was one of his teachers who guided him a path of austerity. What is that austerity? Like Hatha Yoga practices. Now you have to take a fast. You have to sleep on the floor. And long austerity. So something happened that I will talk in the middle. Alar Kalam was passing by. He was the last teacher of Buddha, who taught him the path of meditation. There were other masters, but these two great masters worth mentioning. How long it took Buddha for enlightenment? If you do not have a seed of enlightenment in you, if you do not have a seed, means the impression in you, you cannot treat the path of yoga or meditation. You should have a seed. You may talk a lot about yoga and meditation, but unless those impressions are not there, and Buddha had those impressions, how can you say that? How many times we see people die, nothing happens to us, but it happened to Buddha. He started asking the question why people die, why they become sick, why they become old. Because the impressions were there in his mind. And he wanted to know the answers. So means two things are necessary. Outer teaching is important, no doubt, but inner urge is very important. And that inner urge in Buddha led him to 6 years of regular and committed practice. And Alar Kalam taught Buddha this practice of mindfulness, and he got awakened. Many people come to me, they say, I've been practicing yoga and meditation for the last 10 years. What do you mean? Are you practicing it regularly? No, I practiced it 5 years ago. So now I have come again to you to start the practice. That is not the way of practice of yoga. One should be committed. That is what Buddha did. 6 years of regular and committed practice. And ultimately, so when you become a seeker, what happens? Do you remember the proverb? If you become a seeker inside, a disciple inside, the master appears. That is what happened to the Buddha. He was learning all the Hatha Yoga and practice of austerity under Uddalaka, but he became a mature seeker. Alar Kalam intuitively felt that he is the guy whom the mindfulness must be taught, and he took away. That is how the journey of the Buddha began. Now, we should understand what exactly is mindfulness. Coming directly. First definition from Kapila. He was even older than Patanjali. So he says, Dhyanam nirvishayam manaha, devoid of all the contents, devoid of contents in the mind, means emptiness. What we are using in mindfulness or meditation, we say no, emptiness, nothingness. We'll understand also the meaning of nothingness later. What Patanjali is saying, Yogaschitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga. Patanjali is also saying the same thing. Expression is different, but he is saying the same thing. So normally people translate Yogaschitta Vritti Nirodha as yoga is the control of mind. No. The word Niruddha is there. Niruddha means emptiness. So the real translation should be in English, yoga is emptying the mind of its content. Where it leads to? Samadhi. So Patanjali is also saying the same thing. Kapila is also saying thing. They belong to the same tradition, and so the Buddha is. So Buddha uses the word samyak smriti, right memory. To understand that, it is better to understand the word memory. There is a memory of mind. You have short-term memory, you have long-term memory, you have painful memory, you have pleasurable memory. That is what the memory of mind. But there is another memory. There is a memory of consciousness. What is that consciousness? In Indian tradition, we say that consciousness is Satya Chitta Ananda. Upanishad says, what Upanishad said? Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. That real self is of the nature of truth, infinity, and Satyam Jnanam Anantam, of the nature of truth, knowledge, and infinity. So you see that. So what Buddha is talking, he is not talking of the memory of the mind. He is talking of the memory of the consciousness. That remains empty all the time. It never fades away. So we have to purify the mind, and we have to ask the mind to reach to that memory of the consciousness. That is what mindfulness is. Very important. Are we ready for the path of mindfulness? So if we are ready for the path of mindfulness, what should we do? Now, before that, let us understand how the Samyak Smriti, meditation became mindfulness. It is very important. Otherwise, what happens? People say, I know I'm practicing mindfulness. I don't practice meditation. So normally people who do not go a little deeper, do not want to understand clearly before the practice, they always live in confusion. Mindfulness is different from meditation. So let us understand from where the word mindfulness came and how it became popular in the West. English word is there, almost in the 16th century. Where is that word? Mindfulness, mindful, and mindedness. These words. And these words are also present in French language before mindfulness became popular. So what this mindfulness means, it means to remember, to recollect, to perceive, to retain. You understood the word of meaning, English word mindfulness? These are the meaning. Then there was a scholar of Pali language, Thomas William Rice David, long back around 1890 or 1888. He went to Sri Lanka. He learned Buddhism. He learned Eightfold Path of Buddha, and he translated the Samyak Smriti as mindfulness. Still again there is a confusion. So later, Daniel John Gingerly in 1845 cleared. What he cleared? What Thomas meant mindfulness is right meditation. So is there any difference between meditation and mindfulness? There is no difference. Approaches are different. There are hundreds of approaches. Even I guide more than 50 different approaches of meditation. Meditation or mindfulness is only one. Approaches are different. Why approaches are different? Because we have a different temperament, we have a different level and stage of ignorance. Based on that, all our great masters have changed the different steps of meditation. But ultimately, the goal of meditation or mindfulness is only one: awakening to our real nature, or reaching to the path of nothingness, and bringing an end to the suffering. Clear? Keep all your questions in your mind, so we will have a question and answer session. So now let us understand what is the difference between the Eastern wisdom. Why I say Eastern wisdom? You take it Buddhism, Eightfold Path of Mindfulness, you take yoga, you take the path of Jnana Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Raj Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, all the yoga, including the Buddhism, is nothing but can be collectively known as Eastern wisdom, and keep the modern science on the other side. What exactly, basically, the fundamental difference between the two? Modern science also aims at discovery of the truth, and Eastern wisdom also discovers the truth. So what is the difference? Difference is science discovers the truth in the world outside, in the phenomena, objective reality. And Eastern wisdom, well, whether you say yoga, meditation, mindfulness, Buddhism, aims at discovery of the subjective reality. Can we further make it simpler? There are only two things in the world. One is I am, and other is I am not. What is I am not? When I am addressing you, I am not you. When I say my home, I am not my home. I am not my car. Go deeper. I am not my body. I am not my breath. I am not my mind. I am not my intellect. I am not my ego. So there are only two things. So science discovers everything which is remarkable, what I am not. And yoga, Buddhism, Buddha said, know thyself. Buddha did not say, know the world. He said, world is suffering, if you want to know it. So what is the difference? So science discovers the truth in the objective world. And Eastern wisdom, including Buddhism and mindfulness, discovers what is my true nature, subjective reality. So then it becomes very simple. When you receive a smartphone, what happens? It comes with a manual. You buy a refrigerator or even a car, it comes with a manual. So it means, what is a manual? Manual includes the principles, steps, and practices. So it means, when I want to discover myself, who am I, that manual is what is Eightfold Path of Mindfulness. That manual is what is Ashtanga Yoga. Can any branch of the science dedicates itself, who am I? No. So the manual of the science cannot work here. The way the manual of the iPhone cannot work with the manual of Android phone. Once we understand that, then we really appreciate. Then we become a seeker. And then the real journey of mindfulness begins. Otherwise, we are just wasting our time. Oh, there are a lot of physiological changes in meditation. No doubt, there are. But am I my physiology? I enter into mindfulness to know who am I. No, I am not my physiology. So science can complement by understanding lot of physiological and biological changes, but it cannot help me to find out who am I. And in case of Buddhism, it is the Dhammapad, the book by Buddha. We have to approach the manuals of Eightfold Path to know, practice, and experience. Let us move to the next step, where to begin the journey of mindfulness. So it is understood. He has not written everything in the Dhammapad or Eightfold Path of Mindfulness, but he implied it. What he implied. Where to begin? Do you know that there is a famous debate between the two masters? One master said, I am in the state of nothingness. So another master said, are you sure you are in the state of nothingness? So they both were participating in the debate. Who is going to win? So the first master said, I am in the state of nothingness. Second master said, I won the debate. Why I won the debate? You are nothingness. To whom I can debate? Did you get it? Are you getting it? Two masters went for a debate on the journey of mindfulness. So people misunderstand nothingness and emptiness. So the master who followed the path of Buddhism, in one sect of Buddhism, he said, I'm in the state of nothingness. So when you are nothingness, why you have come for a debate? I have already won the debate. Who will debate with me when you are in the state of nothingness? So I'm just giving you an idea that how to understand mindfulness. Don't take it literally. We have to understand it. So the path of Jnana Yoga and the Eightfold Path of Buddhism are very close to each other. Buddha used to say that I will bring it later. So what are the three fundamental steps? That is implied. First step is, I do not know, let me know it. What I do not know the principles. So I should understand the principles. In the path of Jnana Yoga and the Upanishad, it is known as Shravanam. Second step is, I do not understand, let me understand it. What it means? Say, for example, action and reaction equal and opposite in the first step. So I know the principle. That is the Newton's law of motion. But I do not understand how action and reaction are equal and opposite. That is the second step. I do not understand, so let me understand it. That is what Buddha did almost for more than 50 years. He talked and talked and talked to make people understand. First, you understand before you practice. That is very clear from the teachings of the Buddha. So now see that. Now see the sequence. I do not know, let me know it. I do not understand, let me understand it. What is the meaning of understanding? When you wake up in the morning, do you forget your name? When you wake up in the morning, do you forget your gender? Do you even forget you are single or married? Do you forget your home? No. That is the meaning of understanding. What is the meaning of understanding? There should be a clarity. There should be a conviction in what? The principles. So when there is a clarity and conviction in these principles, then the third step comes. I do not experience. Let me practice it. By practice, you will gain an experience. These are the three unique fundamentals. Yeah, I can give a reference of even what we say, Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Normally, what happens? We say Ath Yoga Anushashanam, now the discipline of yoga begins. What is the meaning of Ath? Ath has more than 7 different meanings. So, how do I know it? I know it from the commentator of Patanjali Yoga Sutra. And who is the commentator? Vyasa, who wrote all the principles of the entire journey of yoga. So Vyasa says Ath means, by Patanjali means, you are a seeker, you already know these steps. That is why I begin the journey of yoga. So the seeker knows all the 3 steps. So that is how these sutras were written. Why I am saying so? It is proven by Buddha also. So I talked about previous 3 steps that will be proved by what Buddha says. Buddha says, accept not what you hear by report, accept not by tradition. Why he says? Think of it. I come to you and I say you that I will send you to heaven, and you believe me. Why you believe me? You don't want to use your intellect. Blind belief means you are paralyzing your intellect. Buddha was deadly against that. He said, no. You see that? It is the Buddha words. Accept not what you hear by report. Accept not the tradition. So what I should do? I should know the principles. I should understand it. And after understanding, I should practice it. Do not hastily conclude that it must be so. Hastily conclude by emotion. No, I love you, I like your beard, so that is why I accept you. No, that will not work in the journey of mindfulness. Do not hastily conclude that it must be so. Do not accept the statement on the ground that it is found on our books, nor on the supposition that this is acceptable, nor because it is the saying of your teacher. What Buddha is saying, awaken to your intellect. Think of it, contemplate, reflect, be very clear. Here is the principle. Now I trust because there is a clarity and conviction. Then only I can start. Why I am saying so? Then only the mindfulness will succeed. Otherwise, how many billions of people are doing the practice? No, I feel good, relax. I want to say something about that relaxation. So you are practicing mindfulness only for relaxation? Yes. Why don't you take pills? Pills also helps you to relax. Drink also helps you to relax. See what Buddha said, don't believe unless you inquire. So what is the goal of mindfulness? It is bringing an end to the suffering. You should reach to the state of mindfulness where it brings an end to the suffering once and for all, so that you don't use mindfulness as pills. Are you getting it? So now let us talk about the Four Noble Truths. Again, in Four Noble Truths, these three principles are applied. What is that principle? I don't know, let me know it. I do not understand, let me understand it. I do not experience, let me practice and experience it. How can you say that these principles are applied by the Buddha? I have been talking, we have to be rational. We should not paralyze our intellect. How he came up with the Four Noble Truths? So there were 5 or 6 disciples. They were doing all kinds of austerity and Hatha Yoga under the master Uddalaka that I mentioned early in the beginning. What were their routine? You have to fast, eat only once a meal every day, sleep on the floor, do all the Hatha Yoga postures. He did all the practices in the morning along with his friends. Then he sat down under a tree. It is a story in Jataka stories. He sat down under a tree, closed his eyes, and he was sitting there. He felt extreme calmness. And there he realized, why I am torturing the body for the sake of awakening? My mind is already calm. Have you heard about the saying of the Buddha? You do not overstretch the string. You do not understretch the string. It should be balanced. So he got that realization through contemplation and reflection. Now what happened? Women are always beautiful. So a beautiful girl brought a sweet dessert to offer to all the students. So she went to the first, please take it, monk. Monk refused it. Young monk, my master told me continue with the austerity. Once a meal every day. He went to the second, third, fourth, and fifth. All the 5 refused. Now he went to the Buddha. Buddha accepted it. Because of his intellect was clear, he contemplated and reflected. He said, I should not torture my body. I should do the stretching until it is to the level it is allowed. And then Alar Kalam was passing by. He took Buddha and he taught him mindfulness. And he got awakening. Now see, if he could not think, contemplate, if he did not apply the previous 3 principles, he applied it, and the first time he ran again to his friends. He brought his friends. He said, come on, I am going to give you the first sermon, first teaching. What was the first teaching? It is known as Dharma Chakra Parivartan, but it is all about 4 noble truths. Now see, was the 4 noble truth not present before the Buddha taught it? It was present. It was present in the name of Heya. What is Heya? Dukkha. What is Dukkha? Sorrow and the suffering. So what Buddha taught? There is a suffering in the world. Now see that we read it, there is a suffering in the world. And then we fall back to the same kind of attachment and detachment in the world that gives me suffering. We come back and Buddha says world is suffering. For me, world is not suffering. It will not happen unless you start thinking about it. I should realize the world in which I living, where is the suffering? So it means I should have a clear understanding. Huh? Suffering is caused by the mind. Now, when I understand the suffering, then the second noble path. Remember, heya. Heya is the first, hetu. What is the cause of the suffering? So Buddha said it is samudaya, the cause of the sorrow and the suffering. What he said? Apramad. What we use the word ignorance. Avidya. Patanjali uses the word avidya smita rag dvesha vinivesha pancha klesha. You see the similarity. Don't start fighting with, I'm doing Buddha's mindfulness, you are doing Patanjali mindfulness. So only those people who do not understand, they start fighting with it. So ignorance leads to suffering. Ignorance leads to suffering. So what I should do, I should understand what kind of an ignorance I have in my mind. Once I understand the ignorance, then comes the third one, hana. This is what? Nirodha. Hana. Buddha said third noble path is nirodha, removal of sorrow and suffering. There is a state of mindfulness that can be achieved. How it can be achieved? That is the fourth step. How it can be achieved? That is the fourth step. Hanopaya. What is Hanopaya? It is eightfold path of mindfulness. Method. Hanopaya means what is the method of reaching to the Han? Han means absence of suffering. So, first we have to understand the fourfold path and then we follow the eightfold path. Now come to the eightfold path also. Understand it clearly. What is eightfold noble path? So there are, if I normally talk here, there are two knowledge practices. What is knowledge practices? I have to awaken the intellect. Why I have to awaken the intellect? I should be very clear about the principles. So there are two out of the eightfold noble path. There are two paths. What is the path? Two paths: right knowledge and right intention. Now you see that. Let me close my eyes and focus on the breath. My mind is running everywhere, and I am focusing on the breath for the last 10 years without understanding. It will not help you to succeed. So you see how the Buddha designed. So first two paths of the Eightfold Noble Path is right knowledge and right intention. Then what he says? Three more path out of the Eightfold Noble Path aims at discipline and education of the mind. That is right speech, right, right thought, right speech, right livelihood. I have mistakenly written, right speech 2 times. And after that, the last two of the Eightfold Noble Path is practice. Practice. It is only to the right mindfulness, or you can say the mindfulness or samadhi, the highest level. Now go little deeper. What is the wisdom practice? Right knowledge. What is right knowledge? So when we study Dhammapad, then we understand what is the meaning of right knowledge written by Buddha. It comes by Viveka and Vairagya. What is Viveka? I separate what is real from the unreal. I have to think in my mind to understand and absorb these principles. Now see that in our childhood, I have experienced. I put my finger into the electrical socket and I get a shock. Since then, I still have certain fear. No, I have to be very careful in touching that. So I separated in my mind. I separated in my mind, not outside. What I separated, that touching gives a shock, so I have to keep it at a distance. So when you separate the real from the unreal, by understanding these principles is known as viveka. Viveka literally means to separate. And what happens? Once you separate it, now I will never get a shock. That is detachment. That needs to be understood. And then comes the right intention. Right knowledge means right desire. Why I am doing mindfulness? I should be. Once I understand it clearly, then the journey of mindfulness enters into the second phase. What is the second phase? Right speech, right thought, right speech, and right livelihood. And it's a long journey. That how I should perform my duty and responsibility living in the world by changing the mind inside. I may be speaking to you guys for the sake of my ego, that is one intention. I may be speaking for just expressing the knowledge. I may be speaking for some other motivation. So my motivation inside should be very clear. That is what the discipline and education of the mind. There are a lot of things, a lot of stuff is there. So once we are clear, then we move to then only we move to the discipline. Now, then what happens? Until we purify the mind, nothing can happen. And the mind is purified by satsang. That is what in yoga context is said. But in Buddhism concept, Buddha always said, listen to me, let me know your problem. I'll help you solve your problem. I remember one small story. I'll complete that in a few minutes. There was a mother whose son died. And she ran to Buddha. Buddha, my master, make my son alive. You are a great master. I have heard from everyone. So Buddha smiled and he said, yes, mother, but there is one condition. What is the condition? You go to the village, knock the door of every villager and ask them, if no one died in their family, I will make your son alive. Mother went to all the villagers, knocked the door, and she returned. So that is the way of our great masters to teach what he taught, viveka, separating real from the unreal. Who takes the birth, death is certain. But how to guide? Now, this is directly taken from the Buddhism, Buddhamapad, as a Fletcher straightens the arrow, so the man of understanding makes straight the trembling, unsteady mind, which is difficult to guard, difficult to restrain. So if we study Eightfold Path of Mindfulness from the teachings of the Dhammapad, what he is saying, you have to purify the mind. So he uses the word straightens the arrow as the Fletcher. Those who makes the arrow, who knows how to make that arrow very straight so it can hit the target. Similarly, we have to make the mind straight. Straight means purified. Once the mind is purified, then only people succeed in the path of mindfulness, my friends. I'm just talking of the philosophy. Even if you want to learn, you can take any practice. You can download it. I would believe that you will use it. You will not misuse it. So there are thousands of practices there. that I have given practically. They are raw files. I have given practically to thousands of people, and it benefited them. So I thought better to put these files for people, and it is totally free. Coming to the what is the Eightfold Noble? Regular practice with wisdom, right effort, right mental state, right mindfulness, practice with discernment and dispassion means viveka and vairagya. And then what happens? The emptiness reveals. Emptiness reveals. Now see the saying of the Buddha, how a person succeeds in mindfulness, living in the world. Just pay attention to it. As a dweller in the mountains looks down on those who live in the valley, so the spiritually mature person, that means a person who has succeeded in mindfulness, the hero. Who is the hero? Why he is a hero? He is free from sorrow, having driven out unmindfulness. Means he has driven out non-meditative state by means of mindfulness, ascends to the palace of wisdom and looks down at the sorrowful, spiritually immature crowd. Simple meaning. When I practice mindfulness and I reach to the highest state of meditation, suffering comes to an end for me, not for those people who has not done the practice. So it's a direct contrast. Buddha is hitting and asking, come on, you have to practice following the Four Noble Truths and then following the Eightfold Noble Path. Now, suffering enters when we are unmindful. Unmindful means when we do not practice mindfulness. This is again, the Buddha is saying, by means of mindfulness, Maghava. Maghava is known as Indra, attend to the head of the gods. Indra, there is a big story, I'm not referring here, and even Buddha was aware of it. So Indra he became the master of the heaven. That is another story because of mindfulness. Mindfulness is always praised, unmindfulness is always shunned. What is unmindfulness? Anger, agitation, stress, and suffering. 24 hours by 7 I am suffering. By means of mindfulness, attend to the chief of the gods. Mindfulness is always praised, unmindfulness is always despised. So that is the small story of mindfulness. So you see, I'm just giving you can join this Spreaker app free. There are thousands of practices. You can also download my free mindfulness practices on Google Podcast, iTunes, putting my name. You will find a lot of practices. This is what I have, almost 70 practices here in one group. There is another, more than 500 practices free. You can go to the Google Podcast, iTunes, search my name, Girish Jha Easternwisdom. You'll find all those practices. Now, your questions and answers.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful presentation. It is a delight to hear and watch you giving the presentation. Yeah, we have a few questions. The first one is how to make mind still and stop from wandering.
How to make mind still and wandering. Follow the path of Eightfold Path of mindfulness. But before that, understand the Four Noble Truths. So what is that Four Noble Truths? There is a suffering in the world. Where the mind is wandering, pay attention. Mind is wandering in the world outside. Can the mind wander inside? It cannot. It always wanders outside. So the world consists of three groups. Now understand where it is wandering. Either it will wander on the object or people, or it will wander in time, or it will wander in place. What is your place? Place may be your home, maybe a bar, maybe a highway. Understood that? So the world consists of, the world is, mind is wandering in three groups of things in the world. First step, understand what I just made a presentation. If you do not understand, mind will continue to wander. That is the Buddhist approach. I'm applying purely a Buddhist approach. Now ask yourself, why the mind is wandering? Mind is wandering only to seek happiness. I like pasta, for example. So mind is wandering on the pasta to seek happiness. Clear? Second point. So we have to think like this, the way I'm thinking. That is what the Buddha says. Don't believe me because it is written in the books. And now what is the next question? If pasta gives me happiness, then I found the solution. If I'm in stress, let me eat pasta. If I have fight with my honey, I should eat pasta. So what is the conclusion? Is happiness located in the pasta or not? Happiness is not there in the pasta. But I feel happy. But where I feel happiness? I feel the happiness in my mind. But pasta does not contain happiness. Or you replace pasta with your honey. If you are worried, you are going for a dating, and ultimately you find your partner has left you, and that's why you feel the mind is wandering there. So you replace pasta. Next question. Happiness is not in pasta. Happiness is experienced inside you, right? Now the next question is, happiness comes from the mind. Now see, that is the approach we should follow. If you don't follow this approach, you do the practice of meditation 10 years, same thing. Nothing is going to happen. So due to ignorance, what Buddha said, ignorance causes the suffering. So what is the ignorance? Happiness is located in pasta, but it is not. So first level of ignorance is gone. Second level, now I have to examine, is the happiness located in the mind? If it is located in the mind, then why I become emotionally upset? So it means happiness is not the quality of the mind. Now what happened to your mind? You saw that nothing in the world can give you happiness. Are you sure? Are you clear? Will your mind wander outside? You got the solution? So you have not to think once, but every time the mind is going outside, find out the object, and then ask yourself, is the happiness lies in my husband or wife? Then your husband and wife will have a problem. Everyone would love him or her. So happiness is not there. Happiness is there inside the mind. Second step. So what will happen? The mind will start looking the mind itself. And then it will discover by the practice that mindfulness state makes the mind still and steady, and the wandering stops.
Excellent explanation, sir. I hope we all can do it with great mindfulness. Yeah, and so second question is, can mindfulness meditation awaken our kundalini?
I did not get it. Echo is there.
Yeah. Mindfulness, meditation, awaken, our kundalini.
Very good. This wonderful person is mixing all the different traditions together. Did you understand my presentation that mindfulness and meditation are one? Are you clear about it? If you are clear about it, the second thing, that this mindfulness or meditation, which is one and the same thing, has different approaches. Approaches means they have a different steps. Why they have a different step? Based on the temperament of an individual. That is how our great masters have created different approaches, but goal is one. So what will happen? Second level of the answer. Now you have reached to the goal in mindfulness without any experiences of kundalini awakening, but it has happened. And when you follow the path of kundalini, you follow different mudras, pranayama, mantras, different chakras, because you focus on those chakras, so you undergo through many experiences. So you say kundalini is awakened by kundalini meditation, but not by mindfulness. Wrong. It awakens in both the cases. Take an example of the Bhakti Yoga. Who has asked the question, perhaps he might be aware of the Bhakti Yoga. When you are totally absorbed in the bhakti, the love and devotion of the God, you don't know what is happening to you. Kundalini is awakened, it has reached to the final goal, but you are not aware. What you are concerned, am I totally absorbed in the love of God? Did you get the answer?
Yes, sir. I hope it has solved the queries of the inquisitive person. जिज्ञासु की कुछ जिज्ञासा शांत हुई होगी, and I hope he got a way, a path, at least to start from. कहाँ से शुरुआत करनी है? He can just follow the way, and then result will automatically come when he will complete that journey. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, sir, for joining us for today's wonderful session. It is a pleasure watching you, listening from you, and we'll look forward to you have more speeches, more lectures with us in future. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. And viewers, stay tuned for our Facebook page live tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. ICCR in Vietnam.
Thank you. Namaste.